Good morning, preppers. Great video for you today, State of the End. This has really good, pertinent information. And it actually kind of goes along with a video we made previously about panic situations. You know, what happens if a robber pulls a knife on you and how are you going to react, and what you can do with action checklists to be able to prepare for such a situation. But instead of actually talking about actual serious panic situations today, we're going to talk about stressful situations. And again, stay with us because I think you're going to find this video to be enlightening to understand how situations happen. Because when it comes to like panic and when it comes to stress in a lot of ways is actually can be a bigger killer than actual actions. I mean, like, look at this panic situation. A robber with a knife sure may kill you. But if you're in a stressful situation, especially a long-term stressful situation with fatigue, your heart may kill you. Because when we talk about the cortisol relief in a constant stressful situation, when we talk about the degradation of morale, it can be fatal and often is. Do not discount this. But we can talk about all kinds of things right now that actually can cause stress in your life. Just turn on the news. Calamity, shortages, economic collapse, threatening of war, etc. The list goes on and on. Just go to YouTube. There's lots of channels who love talking about these things without trying to find a solution and how to get through it. And that's what this channel is all about. And that's what we're going to talk about. I want you to wait for, because we're actually going to talk about how to deal with this, how to deal with these stressful situations, because things, in my opinion, are going to get more stressful and we have to be able to compensate. So stay to the end. And I hope this is going to help you out, not just with prepping and preparedness, but with life overall too. All right. So the first thing is, and this is like really difficult to ask somebody to do, you need to stay level-headed and don't follow in the panic. It's really tough, isn't it, when you get in a stressful situation to stay level-headed? It's very difficult. But nevertheless, it's very important you do this, because when you talk about your brain, the brain physiology of what actually happens as far as how your thought processes work, when it comes to stress, there's 3 specific things that actually take place. The first one we talked about last time is your prefrontal cortex. This is your decision making. And it's really interesting when you get into a long-term stressful situation, especially if you go into a panic situation, sometimes this part of the brain literally will start shutting down because you need to start devoting brain power into other areas that are more vital. For example, we have this thing called fight or flight. And sometimes people say fight, flight, or freeze, which the freeze part is not what your body intends on doing. It's just kind of like a brain malfunction. Think of it that way. But fight or flight. So let's say you're walking through the woods and you come upon a bear. Or let's say somebody breaks into your house and it's a robber. I always picture a guy with the black and white stripes on, like the old jail, holding a knife, a robber coming in to steal money from you. Ultimately, you're really going to have 2 choices in that situation that actually could be helpful. You're either going to fight that robber. Maybe you've actually taken martial arts, or you know what to do, or maybe you pull out something that's stronger than a knife, or you're going to flight. You're getting ready to run from the robber and say, keep the jewels, I'm out of here. Now, again, the freeze part comes in. And unfortunately, if you don't fight or flight because you don't know how to handle the situation, you'll often resort to number 3, freeze, because since your prefrontal cortex is shutting down, it actually makes things incredibly cloudy and you get into a panic mode because of that. Now, understand how, even though panic modes and stressful situations are separate videos, they really have a lot of similarities to them, especially when it comes to fight or flight. Because in this situation, when you get into fight or flight, you're going to see your heart start racing. You're going to start breathing. It's automatic. And then on top of that, your eyes will actually start to widen up. They'll dilate and to let more light in, be able to handle the situation. And unfortunately, the actual visual range will start narrowing down, and now you'll have tunnel vision, where literally you only see what's in front of you. And it's not uncommon for a situation where you're trying to focus on this because you're so panicked about what's happening in front of you, you'll get hit by a car. Or in a military strategy, you'll get flanked because you don't even see the soldiers coming from the side because you're so focused in a panic mode looking ahead what's forward to you. Now, in stressful situations, when you're actually talking about, let's say that you have a power outage at your house and it's been weeks now and you haven't heard news of what's going on outside, you may not be in an action situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I need to be in a panic mode. But the stress will still continuously increase your heart rate, increase your breathing, you'll have trouble sleeping, etc. Now, the second thing that takes place, and this is multifaceted parts of the brain, is what's called your limbic system. And when I say limbic system, think of your emotional area of your brain. This is huge, by the way. Emotions play a huge role on humans. In fact, it's argued that practically every decision you make is based on emotions, which should not be. especially in a panic situation. This is why in a situation when somebody's in a panic mode, they may actually start crying during the panic mode, or even afterwards, they'll really start crying because the emotions really come into play. And instead of actually making level-headed decisions, like we talked about in the last video, standard operating procedure, instead they actually should be making logical ones. With that, they actually make panicked ones. They think emotionally, which you should never do. I don't care if it's a panic, stressful, or regular situation. Don't ever make decisions emotionally. You need to keep your logical level head. And that's what we do in Goshen prepping all the time. People are saying, I don't understand your channel. It amazes me how you talk about, oh, look, we may be having a nuclear war next week. But I say it level-headed because how in the world are the emotions ever going to help? They're not. They're just going to make things worse on you. So the limbic system can actually be just as detrimental as the lack of the prefrontal cortex working as well. We're looking at your prefrontal cortex not thinking. We're thinking of your heart racing, breathing, and your emotions coming into play. All three of those are putting you in a situation where you're not going to be thinking straight. And again, we talked about this last time when we talked about standard operating procedures, but now we're talking about more stressful. And I want you to understand this is not like a panic mode. Let's think about this. I'm watching a video right now and they say that, oh my gosh, now because of the shortages, we're not going to have enough. I'll just make up one that we've been talking about previously, tomatoes. There's not going to be enough tomatoes this year at harvest. And maybe you like to store a lot of tomatoes. Maybe you like a lot of spaghetti and stuff. So in that situation, it would be simple enough to say, you know what? Maybe I should go ahead and pick up some extra tomato sauce, right? That's the level-headed approach. And that's the approach you should have. But instead, what happens when you get in this stressful situation, you start stressing about it, you don't simply just buy a few more cans of tomato sauce or whatever you need for you and your family, but you get into panic buying. And the panic buying is the part that you really need to be careful about. Because obviously this can be exacerbated by other situations. Like, for example, let's say, you know what? Eric and Goshen Prepping said there have been tomato shortages. I like tomato sauce, so let's go down to the store and get some. And when you get down to the store, you're already kind of slightly in a panic mode. You're in a stressful mode for sure. And you're like, all right, look, they have 4 pallets, not pallets, but little cases of tomato sauce. Let's go ahead and just pick up one case. Maybe a big family. You're tempted to maybe buy 2, but you know what? Let's go ahead and buy 1. But then you look around the store and it seems to be something's happening because people is running around everywhere. And now you're like, uh-oh. And so it's easy in that stressful situation to bump it up into a panic situation. And now you're like, forget these other people. I'm buying all 4 cases. You shouldn't ever do that. I mean, obviously, one, because that's community. Yeah, you got to look for yourself and your family first, but other people are going to need food too. But beyond that, because when you get into that panic situation, your emotions kick in and you should tell yourself, no, you know what? No matter what happens, I'm just going to rest. I'm just going to buy that 1 case or whatever you feel like you need for your family, and off you go. When it comes to these panic situations, based on the stressful situations, like a hurricane is a perfect example. Maybe you live in Florida. Of course, the hurricane that just hit was pretty dreadful. But let's rewind a week. You've been watching on the news. Maybe the store you picked up an extra case of water, maybe 2. Hey, I filled up my car full of gas in case you need to evacuate. And as it's getting closer and closer, you're actually keeping a level head and you actually have the stuff ready. Okay, guys, you know what? Let's pack this up in the car because I bet we're going to have to evacuate. But then next thing you know, you see other people panicking, and what's that do to you? Oh yeah, you're going to start panicking too, and you're going to join them in the crowd and now start to go through stores. And next thing you know, you have 23 cases of water. And you're like, why'd I buy so much? Because you let the panic buying kicked in because of the stressful situation. Your emotions kicked in. And when it comes to emotions, especially when it comes to life or death, are you going to be able to feed your family? Are you going to be able to survive the hurricane or a robber coming in your house? Those are things you really need to be able to counteract. So you need to keep a level head. And how can you do that? Again, because we're about how to fix it rather than simply talking about the stressful situations. Here's some techniques that might help you out. And some of this comes from, Eastern thought as far as like martial arts and stuff too, works very well. So like first, breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out. It's amazing how well that will calm you down. Take full breaths all the way in, all the way out. It's good. I mean, I actually feel more relaxed now. Maybe I should do this before every video. Second, you need to picture yourself more in a serene situation. And I know like in movies, they play this all the time. You get in a stressful situation and you picture yourself like, sail away, and now you're sitting in front of like a beautiful beach. whatever that serene situation is, maybe you can picture your family, maybe you can picture just relaxing at home, sitting by a creek, whatever the case may be. But picture yourself in a situation that's more relaxed. Between that and the breathing will help out a lot. But as far as a more physical plan, you need to log down your actions. So trying to actually think of a level-headed thing to do, let's say a hurricane's coming, or you're just trying to prepare because of shortages, you need to write a list of what you need to do, write a list of what you have to have, and just make sure you stick to the list. And tell yourself, you know what? Everything's going to be fine, because you know what? Everything will be fine. We're going to get through this. Because I don't think we're looking at a complete nuclear annihilation. I think we're looking at a depression coming. And people survived the last depression. People survive this one too. Obviously we need to keep prepping, do what you can to get ready for it. But the panic buying is going to send you down a path, especially even if you start going to debt buying stuff, is down a path you'll definitely not want to go down. So just relax. You don't need to right this second. Make your plans, breathe, sail away to a coastal area and relax, because you know what? Ultimately, none of this is in our hands anyway. So all we can do is prepare the best we can, help each other out, and just relax, because as far as this life goes, we'll get through it. Hope this helps. Put any comments you have in the comments below. Maybe you have some other strategies as well. But anyways, thanks for watching.